You know, for decades, we've all heard this really scary story about nuclear energy. It's like a deal with the devil, right? We get all this clean power today, but in exchange, we leave behind this poisonous legacy that lasts for thousands of years. But what if that whole story is wrong? What if the most dangerous thing we've ever created isn't actually waste, but a huge buried treasure of clean energy just waiting for us?
Okay, so let's get into it. To really understand the opportunity here, you first have to grasp the terrifying scale of the problem we've made for ourselves.
So, a typical nuclear power plant, it runs for about 50 years. And during that time, it pumps out massive amounts of reliable, carbon-free electricity. Pretty good, right? But this is the number that has always haunted us. The used fuel from that reactor, it stays dangerously radioactive for at least 10,000 years. I mean, that's longer than all of recorded human history. This is what experts call the duration inversion. It's a crazy paradox, isn't it? A few decades of power creating a problem that could outlast civilizations. This fundamental imbalance, this has been the single biggest roadblock to a full-on nuclear future.
And this isn't some abstract concept. The reality is, well, it's staggering. Here in the United States alone, we've piled up over 88,000 metric tons of this spent fuel. And it's all just sitting in what's supposed to be temporary storage all over the country, a problem we've just been kicking down the road for generations.
Okay, but here's a really crucial point. Not all waste is created equal. Look at this chart. See that tiny 3% slice? That's what we call high-level waste. But get this, that tiny sliver contains a whopping 95% of all the radioactivity. That is the heart of the 10,000-year problem.
So, for decades, this has been this slow-moving crisis. Everyone knew about it, but there was no real urgency to solve it. Until now. Something completely unexpected has come along, and it's forcing the issue on a global scale.
And that catalyst? It's artificial intelligence. The giant data centers that power AI are just unbelievably hungry for electricity. Their demand is growing exponentially, and they need clean, reliable, 24/7 power. And all of that demand is leading everyone right back to the one source that can actually deliver it: nuclear.
And I'm not just speculating here. This is happening right now, as we speak. Microsoft's hunger for clean power directly led to the plan to restart the famous 3 Mile Island plant. Amazon isn't just buying power, it's putting its money into building new reactors. And Bill Gates' company, TerraPower, is partnering directly with data center operators. The very industry that's creating this massive energy demand is now sparking a new nuclear age.
So, we have this huge 10,000-year-old problem. And now, a powerful new catalyst is making it bigger every single day. This is the part of the story where things should get really, really scary. But instead, it takes this sharp, completely unexpected turn.
This one question, it changes everything. What if the basic assumption we've been operating on for 70 years, that spent fuel is just garbage, is completely and totally wrong?
Because here is the incredible truth. After 5 years inside a reactor, we only use about 5% of the potential energy in a nuclear fuel rod. That means what we call spent fuel is actually 95% unused recoverable energy. We haven't been burying a waste product, we've been burying a fuel source. This diagram here really shows you the fundamental mistake we've been making. For decades, the US has used what's called an open cycle. Fuel goes in, power comes out, and the so-called waste goes into storage. But look at that loop that's been ignored: recycling and reprocessing. That right there is the massive overlooked opportunity.
And the difference is it's night and day. In the old open cycle, you get that 10,000-year liability and you throw away 95% of the energy. But in a closed cycle, you recover all that energy, you shrink the final waste volume by over 90%, and you cut the time it's hazardous from 10,000 years down to about 300. You literally transform an eternal liability into a manageable resource.
Now, this isn't just a cool idea on a whiteboard anymore. A whole new generation of companies, with serious investment and government support, is building the technology and the infrastructure to finally close the fuel cycle right here in America.
I mean, just look at this timeline. These are not some far-off dreams. We're seeing pilot demonstrations happening right now, with commercial operations planned before the end of this decade, for tech like Curio's New Cycle and Oklo's pyroprocessing, which is this cool method using high heat to separate the good stuff out from the waste. These are real projects on a very clear path.
Let's just zoom in on one of these breakthroughs, Curio's new cycle process. In lab tests, they've shown they can get the fuel separated from its metal casing with an incredible 99.75% efficiency. A number like that is a total game changer. It's what makes the whole recycling idea actually commercially viable.
And you can hear the excitement from the people in charge. As Curio's CEO Ed McGuinness says, the goal is to fundamentally change how we see this material and to finally unlock this untapped national resource.
And the private sector is definitely taking notice. This isn't just government research anymore. We're seeing plans for up to $2 billion in private investment to build out this new American fuel ecosystem.
A perfect example is this huge partnership between the American company Oklo and the European company Nucleo. They're planning to pool their money to build the actual factories needed to make new fuel from recycled materials right here in the US.
But it's not all about high-tech reactors. You also need the heavy-duty, on-the-ground infrastructure. That's where companies like Perma-Fix are so essential. They've got the long-term government contracts to treat the existing waste at places like the Hanford site, and they are massively expanding their capacity, up to 3 million gallons a year, to handle all the stuff that's going to come from both the old cleanup and the new recycling.
Which brings us full circle, right back to that paradox we started with. But now, after everything we've seen, that paradox, well, it looks completely different, doesn't it?
We created a liability that would last 10,000 years, all to get just 50 years of power. But what if the solution to that liability, recycling the waste, doesn't just neutralize the problem, but completely inverts it? By turning our biggest energy liability into our greatest energy asset, are we on the verge of unlocking a fuel source that could power our world for the next 10,000 years?